Welcome to Tradiers, the Trader's Edge. I am Jim Iuorio. That's Bob Iaccino coming to us live from Las Vegas, Nevada. I know, a lot of times this is a very, very lighthearted show, and I want it to be that way because we love our jobs. We love trading. We love analyzing. But this is right now, I know thousands of people watch this live, but there's also many who watch it on a recording. We just found out, within the last 20 minutes, half hour, about the Charlie Kirk shooting. That's something that weighs on us heavily. It's senseless bullshit that it's amazing to me. I was on a call with a company that had me on their district headquarter meeting the other day, and someone came up with a question saying, well, is this one of the craziest political times in our history? And I said, well, no, of course not. In the 1960s, 5 of the luminaries from the Democratic Party were shot within the span of about 5 years. In the 1860s, we all picked up guns and shot each other and killed each other. So there's been worse times. But right now, this ups the ante tremendously. This is the most unbelievable story that this would happen in a civilized world. And people are getting crazy. And there's really, God damn it, there's no reason to be at all. Charlie Kirk, if you want to call him a right-wing nut job, you're out of your mind. There's not one thing he ever says that wasn't completely centrist 10 or 15 years ago. Guess what? We used to believe in religion, and he talks about religion all the time. We as a countries that slip away from religion, Elon Musk just said it the other day, if you lose religion, you start to worship something else. This is an unbelievable story, and it's left me kind of in a way. Hopefully, Bob can lift my spirits. Bobby, what do you got on it?
I don't know that I can lift your spirits, man. I agree with pretty much everything you just said. The one thing I will say, and again, this is live. I don't know if there's been any updates, but if he lives through this, I'm going to start going to church. I mean, I have my own beliefs about God, and it's a positive belief. I believe there is one, but it's personal, the way that I express it and deal with it. But I may start going to church, and it's one of those things that when I heard this, it was one thing, but with social media, which we are taking advantage of right now, and that video getting shared around, that disgusting video, and people on the left celebrating it. And I'm positive there were assholes that celebrated Martin Luther King's death and John Kennedy's death.
Yep.
None of this is celebratory to me. And that's why I'm going to try and lift your spirits when we bring the guest on, because maybe we can stop talking about this.
No, but we have a great guest, and I'm sorry that this is dragging me down, but I can't believe it. I got a text from a buddy of mine saying another buddy of ours, I guess what trading floor was still open, maybe the VIX, and someone started like laughing about it, and there was a big scuffle. He went after the guy, and I'm proud of my buddy for going after the guy who was laughing about it. No, yeah. Again, violence is not good, but if you laugh about this shit in front of me, you might have to knock the shit out of me after I punch you. So we'll see what happens then, but this is unbelievable. Let's bring on our guest, and hopefully we can talk about some other stuff. One of our favorite guys, Tony Nash from Tony Nash Nerd. What's the name of his company again, Bobby?
The coffee company or the Complete Intelligence Company?
Complete Intelligence is more of what we do here, but we like coffee as well. Yeah,
he sent us some coffee. Nerd Roasters is unbelievable.
It is unbelievably good. Let's bring in Tony, and hopefully he can make us smile a little bit. Shit's serious, isn't it, Tony? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird time, and I've talked about this a lot. I do a geopolitics thing with Albert Marco, as you guys know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've talked about how violent things are and how things have seemingly become more violent because there are no consequences, right? And it's, if one side of the political extreme is violent, they're allowed to laugh about it. If another side of the political extreme is violent, then it's shameful. And, it's just a very weird time. And, I, like you, I've kind of made some analogies to the 60s. People love to compare where we are to the 30s, right? And I don't think it's so much that, but it is kind of a 60s, late 60s kind of moment, I think, in reverse. So when the baby boomers came in, it was going one direction, right? Now that the baby boomers are going out, I think it's actually going in the other direction. So we're doing the 1960s in reverse because we've had baby boomers in control for 40, 50 years, and look where it's got us, right? And so we've outsourced our jobs, we accept violence, we, all sorts of things, and it's a problem. No offense to any individual baby boomer, but when I talk to baby boomers individually, they'll tell me, yeah, our generation screwed everything up. Like I have several baby boomer friends who will tell me that their generation screwed everything up. And so again, it's no one's individual responsibility, I guess. It's everybody's responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened within that generation is nobody became responsible, right? And that's why as a country today, I feel like, and I think we've led the world into this, is where there's almost no responsibility for things individually.
Yeah.
There's the collective responsibility, but there's no individual responsibility. So it's terrible. We're in a weird place, and it's not going to be fun getting out of it because people are continuing to try the political tactics that have worked for the last, say, 30 years, right? And a lot of the divisiveness, if you remember in the 90s when Bill Clinton came in, right? And sorry, as I adjust my camera here, but if you remember in the 90s as Bill Clinton came in, his campaign guys were proclaimed as geniuses because they could splinter the electorate, right? Do you remember that? They were talked about as geniuses as they could splinter the electorate. And what's happened now is we have such a splintered electorate that we don't have a unified society anymore. And, you can take someone like Charlie Kirk, who, yeah, he's got conservative views, but they're not fringy.
Not fringy at all. Yeah.
They're not fringy. He's not like a Glenn Beck or something. I mean, or whatever. Like, I don't know what people's individual politics are, but I don't think Charlie Kirk is fringy, but he is conservative unapologetically, right? And so I think it's tragic. He's a young guy, and he has brought a lot of young voters into the Republican Party. And I think that's why he's a threat to people, because Trump credited him with bringing a lot of young voters in. Yeah. And, I have kids who, it's not entirely Charlie Kirk, but there are a number of people who have really attracted them into being, to understanding politics. They're in their 20s, right? And so before they didn't care because it's a bunch of old people, right, talking about stuff. But with Charlie Kirk and kind of his generation of people, like you had the Young Turks like 10, 15 years ago, right? But they're old now, right? Yeah. And they're just ranty old people. Right. And so
Cenk is a dick too. I don't even I would never celebrate any violence against him, but I thought he was a bully and kind of a dick. Charlie's not a bully and a dick. Yeah.
No. And so and he'll stand up and like have honest debates with people and let them say their piece and respond to them. And I mean, this is something that a civilized society should be able to do. We should be able to have open debates with people. Yeah. And not hate each other because our views, right?
I'll add one last thing, but he went to the high school in the town next to mine here.
Oh, really?
Several of my buddies were his teachers. One was the athletic director, and they're libs. My buddies, they're teachers.
You talking about Cenk or Kirk?
Kirk went to Wheeling. Yeah. And they loved Charlie Kirk. They thought Charlie Kirk was just a wonderful, wonderful kid. And almost to the point where they're like, I love that he's out there making a difference, even though it disagrees with every collectivist thing that they believe in, being teachers. Bobby?
Yeah, I like what Tony said about, the disrespect. I mean, you implied the disrespect for a difference of opinion. You complimented Cenk, which I'm glad you did, because Cenk can kind of act like an asshole, but he's not calling for any shooting of the people.
Hell no. Right.
Him individually. Right.
Yeah.
There's this doctor, and I don't want to say his name because I haven't really vetted him. I just saw a couple clips of him here and there, but he said that, first of all, the school shooting numbers are blown out of proportion, because if there's a gang related shooting a block from a school, they put it in the school shooting numbers. And he said somewhere in the last, I want to say, don't quote me on the year or the number, but I think he said in the last 20 years, there's been 52 legitimate school shootings, and every shooter was on antidepressants or some sort of psychological meds. And it struck me as
messed up, man.
Yeah, these are now again, please, somebody reach out if that's bullshit, if that's something you've looked up and you can debunk it. I don't care. Just pointing out that the way society is, Charlie Kirk may be dead. We don't know yet. I can't find any confirmation. And he may be dead because he has a different opinion. That's crazy to me. And a lot of people say that happened to Martin Luther King. Totally agree. It's all crazy. It's not about sides here. In my opinion, when somebody gets shot for speaking, there was a huge audience that saw him get shot live. Why was that audience there? He's not like some fringe guy in the background, running the old Illinois Nazi party like they made fun of in the Blues Brothers movie. And there's none of us are boomers, technically. Jim and I are close, but we're not. Technically, we're not boomers. Right.
So there are some people who define it as late as early as 1965. So that by some definitions, I'm a boomer. And my dad was a World War II vet too. So yeah.
Well, I was born in '66, so you can go screw yourself. I'm not a boomer.
You're born in the '70s, guys. I can't relate. I was born in the '70s. So
well, Jimmy, you had actually one of the great. The '80s and '90s was your childhood. Yeah. The boomers, whether they blame themselves or not, this is not from that. This is people who are messed up and they're shooting each other. Whether you go to that stabbing on the train, I don't give a shit if the guy was black and the girl was white. There's too much violence. It's disgusting. And we have to talk about markets. I know. And I personally think everybody should subscribe to Complete Intelligence because it's ridiculously cheap for what you charge. That's not encouraging you to up my subscription payment. It's ridiculously cheap and it's incredibly useful.
Thank you.
Let's move on to markets. Unless there's people out there who want us to continue on that, send us messages. But I want to continue on markets. I want to talk about Oracle specifically today because I don't know. Oh, you didn't hear the rundown. We did this before the show. The Oracle thing was fascinating to me, and I want you to fill in some of the details for me, because to me it seemed like, okay, Nvidia, Micron, AMD, those are all bid up. Even the ones like Google and Amazon are bid up, and everyone thinks they're expanding into AI. Well, Oracle just kind of unveiled a new way they were going to use AI, and all of a sudden, boom, their stock was up 39%. Is this an indication that the money out there is thirsting for an AI play, but an AI play that's not stretched like the other ones had been?
Of course. Yeah, of course it is. I mean, look, Oracle has, they were late to the cloud trend, and they're late to the AI trend. And Complete Intelligence was an Oracle for Startups company. So we were in their incubator for a little while. So I'm a little bit biased. I know Oracle is, to some people, seen as kind of a cold company, but they've been nothing but kind of good to us in terms of a company. They've been a partner and stuff. So, but I think, it is. And I saw somebody online this morning joking about SAP not having kind of the AI kind of shine to it. And I'll tell you a funny story about SAP. I was talking to the senior vice president of supply chain for SAP probably 4 years ago, telling him what we do with AI in supply chain. And at the time we were doing this for a $300 billion company. And I said, look, here's what we do. And he said, that's not possible. What you're doing is not possible. And I said, we're doing this right now. And he pretty much hung up on me. So SAP does not have the AI sparkle because they don't believe in AI. Okay. And if anybody from SAP wants to get in touch with me and tell me otherwise, then I'd love to hear it. But Oracle has been supportive of AI with OCI, with Oracle Cloud, but they haven't really had the same AI shine. I mean, look, I think companies like Palantir are absolute bullshit. Okay, they're a systems integrator. They're a consulting firm. That's all they are. And they've sold AI so well, but they are 1990s era Accenture body count sellers. They are not scalable AI companies. Oracle, once they turn their resources to building AI, and again, I'm biased, right? They've been very nice to me, okay? But once they turn their resources to building scalable AI products, they'll do it really well. So, but there are companies out there that are genuine, real AI companies. And there are companies out there that have kind of kind of gotten it by association because they put a lot of words on their website, and their CEO can go out and use some words, but they're not truly AI companies.
So I just want to throw out real quick. I'm at a conference in Las Vegas right now, and somebody came up to me and said, I follow you on Twitter, and I also subscribe to Complete Intelligence, because I mentioned that you were going to be on.
Did we get a cut on that, Tony, or no? Forget it. We'll go on.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he did it through he said that he follows me on X, and he also subscribes to you, because I mentioned that. I said, oh, well, we're going to be on in like an hour with Tony Nash. He goes, yeah, I subscribe to his stuff. He goes, the stuff is really, really great. His name is Chase. If he reaches out to you, I told him you can reach out.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. I said you can reach out to those guys. They will actually help you to use it, because it is really useful. And I complimented one of your calls from this week to him. That was just me patting myself on the back for helping a friend. The real thing I wanted to ask you was, in terms of, are we seeing basically the sifting out of the .com equivalent companies without the market crash? Because that's what's happening right now. I own Round Hill's Mag 7 ETF. MAGS is the symbol. Oracle's up, Nvidia's up, AMD is up, the ETF is down. Are we seeing the sifting of the bullshit companies without getting an entire market crash? Is that what is happening in your view?
I hope so. I mean, I think what's happening is, so when I would say probably in 2017, when I was still kind of coming up with the idea around Complete Intelligence, I was talking to somebody who I was working with at the time, and I said, we're an AI company. And he said, no, we're not. So I said, let me ask somebody who knows. So I got in touch with somebody in Silicon Valley, early AI investor. And I said, how do you define AI? And he said, AI is everything from an algebraic function onward. Okay. So really anything is AI that incorporates math. But I guess what you're asking is, what is kind of useful and revolutionary AI? And that's really where the value is, right? It's in the scale. And so we have two sides of Complete Intelligence. One is market forecasting. So we're basically a time series forecasting company. So one is market forecasting. The other one is helping CFOs and corporate finance people forecast their revenues, expenses, and really automate their budgeting. Okay. But we saw guys in markets saw AI come in 4 or 5 years ago, really, and start to forecast markets, right? But in corporate finance, they really haven't allowed AI to help them. And we're just now, like literally just now, starting to see functions like corporate finance kind of, I guess, surrender to the intelligence of AI. We have seen things like operations, supply chain, other things integrate AI into what they do. And so those companies that have been doing that for years, they've benefited from it, right? But again, some of the companies, you have companies like, I don't know, and I'm randomly pulling out a name, but you have companies like Anaplan that have had AI in their stuff for years, right? Good company. I don't really follow them, but I'm sure they're a good company. They've had AI in their stuff for years, right? And that's built into the software. But you have a lot of companies like the one I mentioned earlier that talks about AI that is literally just a consulting firm, okay? And so what you have to do is you have to ask whether the companies actually have the artificial intelligence activities built into their processes, whether it's hardware or software, okay? And is it useful? Is it something that will be adopted by either consumers or businesses, right? And so the other, level of this is competition. How much competition is there out there, right? Because there are all of these companies that were funded by Silicon Valley over the last 3-4 years. Really the last 3 years, that are simply APIs that go into ChatGPT or APIs that go into Google, okay? And so you have a layer of kind of an AI company, okay? But it's simply built on an API that taps into an LLM. So it's not really their technology. They're leveraging someone else's technology. And these guys have gotten billions of dollars from Silicon Valley, all because the investors didn't understand that it was simply an API that tapped into kind of an LLM technology. So I think we're starting to see a separation, as you said, a separation of those good companies and a separation of the companies that are just kind of also around for whatever reason.
So Tony, isn't the sweet spot right now identifying those companies that are tapping into the other people's AI and being able to use that to streamline their own process. Only I say that because, of course, it's wonderful to be able to pick the NVIDIA 4 years ago that's going to be the one who makes the chips. But at some point in time, doesn't it filter down to who is going to use it most effectively? And if so, what are some sectors or names that you think are going to benefit from the most of this that might be good for investors?
I think, going back to Oracle, going back to, Microsoft, these sorts of guys, these companies buy companies. They buy smaller companies that do things really well, right? And so why did Oracle get a bump? Because they're looking at acquisitions in different companies that they can integrate into their ecosystem. If you look at what Microsoft is doing, Microsoft is not just betting on OpenAI. They're working with other LLMs as well, and they're integrating AI capabilities into their existing software, right? So you don't even have to think about AI, and it's in Excel when you open it today, right? You don't have to think about it, and it's in Word today. Some of that is just retention of subscriptions and retention of business. But for other stuff, it's enhancement of business. And so, I think you have to look at the big companies that are actually buying things that will help their core business and will help both to retain customers and to grow kind of the share of corporate process, right? So, you look at like Mark Benioff at Salesforce. He loves to talk about AI, right? But are they really doing it? Maybe, they're doing some stuff. I mean, I wish they did more, but they're doing some stuff. So they're not seeing the pop that they want, right? But, Microsoft and Alphabet are like the main ones that have done really well. And Meta, of course. And Meta's problem is that it open sourced its AI without commercializing it first, right? And so it obviously put it into Instagram and other stuff, but it has this open source LLM that it put out called Llama that it didn't charge for. And I think their thesis was they wanted to just get it out into the marketplace and standardize the expectation.
Our boy Remo's got a question. Before I read it, does it look like I still have the makeup on from my speech?
No, your lighting's not good enough to even see it that way.
Damn it, I left it on and I'm sweating under here.
Yeah, no.
I feel like if I do this, I'll look like it. Well, I was just
your nose, for some reason, looks like you smarted off to a few too many people.
See, you know what sucks about this lighting? It's my
It's
real
the lighting.
nose.
It's the lighting.
No. This is what my nose looks like in person.
Yeah, I know.
I have the lighting at home set up so that I look like an Irishman.
By the way, are you staying in Vegas tonight? Is your wife there too, or what is it?
No, she's not here. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. But it's funny because this nose has been broken 4 times. Once by me smarting off to a bigger kid who was 2 years older. His name is Philip Schmidt. And he went like this as I was backing up, making fun of him. He goes like this, and I turned and ran into a tree. And he did it on purpose, so he didn't have to punch me. That was my first broken nose. The next 2 were in boxing when I boxed, and the fourth and final one was Nikki Bellcaster. So Nikki, if you ever see this, you know why you hit me. I deserved it, and I lost the fight.
By the way, you know who broke my nose real quick? You know the name Campisi? Tony, his uncle was Jasper Campisi, the hitman. I do know that guy. In Chicago lore, Tony, Jasper Campisi was charged to hit the Tokyo Joe Ito, who was the head of the Japanese mob in Chicago. And he shot him 3 times in the head, and the guy lived. So then the mob killed Jasper Campisi. But anyway, his nephew, Tony Campisi, we got in a little bit of a scuffle, and he ended up smashing my nose because I slipped. And Tony's dead now, death by cop. But if he was alive, I'd be coming for retribution. But anyway, Bobby, you were about to say something from Remo.
Yeah, our boy Remo, it's Stock Charts, asked a question. Apple down big today. Is that indicative of it being late with AI?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think they're talking about new hardware that is interesting, but it's not built on their technology, right? I mean, it's not built on their software AI technology. It's borrowing other people's technology. So yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with that. And, I always go back to this with Apple. Tim Cook is at heart a supply chain guy. So he's focused on the hardware. He's focused on squeezing out margin. He's focused on time to market, that sort of thing. He's not at heart a software guy. And so, I think it's exactly that.
So I have a question about Apple again, too, because I've gotten out of much of my Apple that I've had for years and years. And I just think there's better things. And by the way, I'll couch this question is that let's play a game 10 years from now. who would you rather own? And let's go with the whole gamut. NVIDIA, Microsoft, you mentioned them, Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and anyone else you can put in 10 years from now. Who are the ones who are winning this? Oracle you can throw in.
Microsoft, Google, Amazon. I still think that those are the guys who are, and Meta. I mean, look at the cash that Meta spins off. It's unbelievable how much cash they spin off. All these companies, the amount of cash they spin off is incredible, right? So it's hard to bet against any of those guys, and they can buy anybody they want. NVIDIA, I think they have great products. I think they're a great company, but I think we see hardware companies time and again, they come up, they blow up, and then competitors come in and do similar things, and then they, the valuations fall. So, I like the NVIDIA story. I like what NVIDIA's done. I think they have amazing technology, but I think they have to be very careful that they don't become, the Cisco analogy, right? They have to be very careful they don't become Cisco, right? And so, no, Cisco could do nothing wrong back in the day, right? And so, I mean, I don't think they have to do that, but I don't think it is necessarily avoidable at some point, because in hardware, you have competitors that come in. You can't patent everything. Right. And so AMD is doing stuff. Other people are doing stuff. So, and you have Apple and OpenAI making their own chips, and all this stuff. Meta's making their own chips. So these guys are all doing this because Blackwell is so expensive, and of course they want to get their orders in for Blackwell chips and the next generation chips. But they're only doing this because it's so expensive, and NVIDIA is charging so much. So if NVIDIA charged less, of course they wouldn't have the valuation they have, but they also wouldn't be developing their own chips.
Time out for 1 second. Luis, can you put the banner up? You guys have been so supportive of this show, and we cannot thank you enough. This is our favorite show to do because of the live element to it and because of the audience participation. If you could do us a favor and try Tradier Pro for 3 months for free, all you have to do is scan the code. We talk to options traders all the time, from novices to the most expert traders, and all of them have the same thing to say about Tradier Pro, is that it is a top flight system regardless of where you are on the hierarchy. So give it a try. 3 months, scan the code. Thank you guys for doing it. Back to the show. Bobby?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I hate, Tony, those names like the Mag 7.
I hate Tony.
No,
I hate
I like that. But I hate those names because when you look at like the Mag 7, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, Meta, who am I forgetting? Tesla. Look at a Tesla chart. How is that like magnificent lately? Apple down today while the other ones are being driven higher. You guys remember FANG? Facebook, yep. Amazon, Netflix, and Google? Not what it was. So do you ever, like, when you talk to people, do you ever look at it and someone's like, what do you think of the Mag 7? Do you answer that question with which one?
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a time when it was a one-way ticket, but it's not anymore. And, Tesla was a great thing before Elon got involved in politics, and he just didn't know his limits, right? And so, I mean, you can pick any of these, and you can find downsides to any of these. But again, it's really hard to look at, especially these software firms, and see the cash that they spin off every quarter and find a downside in the short term, because they're buying up companies, they're developing technology, they're reshoring stuff. I do think that a lot of what, for example, that something came out last week about kind of Chinese coders having access to some data that Microsoft was working on for the US government. I think it was DoD data or something. And so they're being shamed into putting stuff back into either friendly countries or back in the US. That's good, right? I mean, I think that software arbitrage is not really all that effective anymore.
Bobby, this question's to you, and I want you to be honest with me. I'm going to now ask Tony about, my thesis for owning Google for the last 6 or 7 years. And I don't mean to it be a tedious, me beating the same drum. Tony, you know why I own Google? Because they're the damn CIA. Google, when I came to the realization that they essentially were an arm of the government, It's like, of course I'm going to buy Google. What kind of intelligence agency would let a company that gathers intel way better than they do operate independently and alone? This is a relatively reasonable thesis, and not just with Google, with many of the big tech names, correct? You just mentioned the Microsoft working on DoD. They are essentially defense companies in many ways, right? And intelligence companies. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they can impact social behaviors. They can collect data. They can profile. They can look at events. So, are they the CIA? I mean, I'm not going to pretend they're not, right?
Yeah.
But
right, and none of us know for sure, but we are to a point where it seems slightly more reasonable to think they are in bed with the CIA than to think they aren't. Correct?
Sure. I mean, again, I don't. I mean, I don't know that anything is necessarily explicit in that, but I think, it's something that you have to keep in mind. Yeah. But based on that thesis, Jim, then Palantir is the DoD, right?
Yeah. Well, so by the way, so was Google was started with the DoD loan too, according to Mike Benz. So I mean, DARPA loan, whatever it is. But yeah, Palantir, that's right up that alley too. I just didn't jump in on that in the right time, so I've not been a big owner of that. Then all of a sudden, its valuations went through the roof.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't have the core software products that Google has, that Alphabet has. I mean,
right.
It's just.
Oh no, I'm not saying that Google isn't a great company too, because I think they are, and they got a shit ton of cash, like you said as well. And they have the smarts to buy up the right companies. They're at to a point where they have the critical mass. Bobby?
Sorry, I'm just. I don't know if you had a question for me. I agree with you on. You said this question was for me.
No, just to tell me if I'm getting old by talking about Google so much being the CIA. I
don't know. I don't think that's old. I really like your thesis. I think, look, if somebody said we have the Unfiltered Investor newsletter, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say we got so big that the CIA approached Jim Iuorio, who's one of the contributors and one of the owners of the newsletter, and they said, Jimmy, we're going to make you incredibly wealthy, but we need to see what everybody says and does on your newsletter chat, which doesn't exist yet, but it's coming. Would you say yes? Probably. You're going to be a multi-billionaire.
Do you know why I would say yes? Because I fear saying no to the CIA with anything.
That's where I was going.
Like they can do whatever they want. They can have child porn on your computer in an hour. Hey, you heard me, Tony. I'm not backing off that. They can do that. They can control your car. They can do what they want. So I would not make enemies of powerful intelligence agencies. Tony, I saw that I shocked you. Please elaborate.
No, I just don't like the idea of that. I'm not saying it's not possible.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of it either.
I don't like the idea of it. But
hey, Turning Point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tony. Turning Point USA. Those of you who don't know, that's the organization that Charlie Kirk started. I'm sorry, Turning Point UK says Charlie Kirk is alive and fighting. He's in critical condition.
Okay.
So
again, we started the show with this guy, and believe me, it is right at the forefront of our minds. This is an unbelievable story to us. This is a show must go on sort of scenario because we can't just talk about it the whole time. But my thoughts are never more than a centimeter away from this Charlie Kirk story. It's amazing to me. Yeah. But anyway, what else? Oh, okay. So now I want to go to the NASDAQ in general, broader. So S&P made new highs a couple days ago. S&P kept its bid today. NASDAQ has not made new highs. Last I saw, bled away most of today's gains, despite the fact that PPI was wonderfully pleasant today at 2.6%. I heard someone say slightly under expectations. No, 2.6 to 3.3 is not slightly under expectations. That's a plunge. Is the fact that the NASDAQ can't make new highs and stay there indicative of potentially a rotation out of the big AI names for now into the broader market? And will the market have a difficult time digesting that?
I think rotations never really go smoothly, though, do they? Right.
Yeah. That's my point. Right.
The big unknown, of course, and I hate to bring this into the conversation, but the big unknown is the Fed, right? And so, I mean, let's say, for example, the Fed cuts 50 basis points. Are you happy with that? Are you all in at that point? Or are they saying that the economy actually really isn't doing well, and so we have to cut 50 basis points?
So can I answer that if that's a real
yeah,
question?
answer that. Yeah.
Because here's what I think. I think prior to August 1st, and even more specifically prior to the last round of unemployment data and the big revision, I think the market had this belief that the Fed was going to cut, but it wasn't really, really needed. I think the Fed, the market likes a Fed dovish mistake, but only if it's a small mistake where rates are a little bit lower than when the actual economic condition dictates. I think now all of a sudden we wake up to, oh shit, the labor market isn't as strong as we thought it was. And we were led to believe that all these gains that really don't exist. So now I think the market's like, will the Fed deliver enough rate cuts? And I think the short-term answer to that is probably, but it's wildly different than cutting rates into a pretty good economy just to go back toward the neutral rate. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. But guys, I have a view, and I posted this yesterday, and I asked it as a question. What if the US actually went into recession last year and the data just said we didn't? Because the Fed cut 50 last September, right?
Yeah.
So they cut 50 last September. They cut 25 in October, conveniently before the election, right?
Yeah.
And then once, the new guy was in office, they stopped. So
by the way, are you saying right there that Tony Nash feels that there was an element of nefarious to that, or are you just saying it's worth looking at?
I would say it's worth looking at, but I would say that I don't think the Fed has your best interests at heart. I think they have political interests at heart. And I was on another show in May, and I was talking about how political the Fed was. And after the show, this person said that I was just a redneck Trump lover or something like that. And I'm like,
we get called that all the time.
Are you not aware that, like, LBJ pushed the Fed, that FDR pushed the Fed? I mean, Democrats have pushed
Elizabeth Warren pushed the Fed every
Right.
freaking chance she got.
Right. So the Fed is a political instrument. It has been a political instrument. There is nothing that can convince me it's not. Right. So
is that my phone or is that one of your guys' phones?
That's
not
mine.
mine.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
no
seeing
worry about
someone
it. Yeah,
else's
no worries.
Can we
phone.
watch you take a call?
I can't
What?
control it.
Can we watch you take a call? Go ahead and answer.
Only if it's your
It's
wife.
not even my house.
Oh, okay, right.
So I would love to pick it up and take a call, but I don't think it. So okay, so I think that the Fed has always been political. I think that there is a big problem with the alignment of the Fed. I wonder how you can select those Fed officials without political bias.
You cannot.
Because
You must algo the shit out of it. You must get a committee of guys like us, guys like you specifically, who will come up with 20 different data points and an algo that says when we slightly lower or slightly raise. Independent of that, the Fed is a failed experiment, and all you need to do to confirm that is look at the purchasing power of the dollar since the Fed was launched in 1913 to now. We've lost 98% of its value. The Fed is absolutely 100% a failed experiment, in my opinion. You agree with that, or is that too strong?
Well, I think it might be a little bit too strong, because if you look at like the depressions we had in the 1870s and 1905 and other ones, they were terrible, right? And so there's a book on the history of interest rates. I can't remember the name of it right now, but central banks have always been there to make sure that the bankers are comfortable, to make sure that the bankers don't feel too much of the downside when markets fail. So that's not a conspiracy theory. That's the reality of the situation. Because when banks fail, like, traders are incentivized and bankers are incentivized for taking risk, and they're incentivized more generally for taking more risk. So if we want to limit the downsides, or if we want to have the upsides, we have to have an instrument to limit the downsides. I know I sound like I'm defending central banking. I'm not. I don't know what the alternative is, though. Right?
That actually makes sense to me.
Sort of like the horses out of the barn kind of a thing. We've had a Fed for this long.
Yeah,
reversing it now would be a problem.
Right. And so, are you a conspiracy theorist if you don't like central banks and you say that they were all, it's all an insider's game? I just think that's the reality of it, right? And so what can you do? I don't know. I mean, I don't think abandoning the Fed is something you can do. I think the Fed should be audited. I think there should be transparency around what the Fed does. There isn't.
Well, what about my idea of like a strict, like a process, a 20-point economic data process? Do you think that's possible even?
That's fine, but yeah, that's fine. But I think the data itself, I don't believe any government data. I'm the wait for the revision.
Great point. Yeah.
I don't believe any government data. So what data are you going to look at to monitor that model, right?
By the way, why the hell do we look to the government to give us economic predictions and information? They're the ones that we can absolutely make the argument are biased. They want to protect their phony baloney jobs often.
It's propaganda.
Yeah, it's propaganda. But ADP is a private company. I'm going to start looking more at their data. Not that that'll do any good because everyone trades off the NFP data anyway. But ADP is probably more accurate, correct?
It's probably more accurate, but you have to look at the data people trade on. Like,
bingo.
Traders are smart people about certain things. They're not nerdy statistical economists necessarily, right? I've met two nerdy statistical economists who are also great at trading. The rest of them are just academics, right? It's why I left The Economist. It's why I left doing economics work, because the stuff that they were doing is so irrelevant to markets and it's so irrelevant to business, right? Because I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So if you follow me on Twitter, like you see, X, I mock economists a lot. I mock government data a lot because there is no way to audit it. And all the government data you see is revised 3 times over the next 3 years. So, and nobody pays attention to the third revision. Like, it doesn't matter, but that's probably when the truth comes out, right? Yeah. So, and we've talked about this before, guys. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but with the Fed, Lisa Cook, a court just came out, was it last night or today, saying that she can't be fired by Trump, or at least in the way he's doing it. So she's still in place. So there are a lot of people out there right now saying the Fed is going to cut 50 basis points. How? Miran's not in yet, right?
Yep.
He hasn't been. Has he been approved?
Oh, no, I don't know.
No, not yet.
I don't think so.
No, right. Miran hasn't been approved yet, right?
Yeah.
Lisa Cook is still in there. You've still got that guy who thinks he's a stand-up comedian at the Chicago Fed, right? Austin Goolsbee. You have all these partisans at the Fed. So I'm really thinking that it's possible that they don't cut it all this month and they wait until next month, because I believe that they want to see Trump humiliated.
See, that's where I disagree with you. I agree with everything you're saying up to the point. I do think they're backed into a corner, and at this point in time, they must cut. Bobby, weigh in on that. Who's right, Tony or me?
Well, I'll tell you this: the CME Fed Watch tool. I haven't looked at it today because it was pretty busy.
Well, it's like 98%.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. I've never seen it over 95%. This close to a meeting be wrong since the inception of this thing. Right. So I'll tell you what, Tony, you should do a tiny, tiny trade based on your theory, because you will make a fuck ton of money. That's a term.
That's a financial term, a very, very sophisticated.
Hey, listen, I'm not saying they're not going to cut, but I'm saying I think it's plausible that they don't cut.
No, I know exactly. I get what you're saying. I love the conversation.
Yeah. Even the
I just don't want people to come away from this discussion saying Tony Nash says there's not going to be a cut. That's not what I'm saying. I think it's
actually, that's a lie. The Fed Watch tool does have it at 0, because it's a 98% chance of a 25 basis point cut and a 2% chance of a 50.
So that's 100.
So they literally have it at 0.
Yeah.
I want to throw
my calculator. 98 plus 2. That's 100. Yeah,
that's 100. We usually do the math wrong. The Homer Silla book you mentioned was A History of Interest Rates. Is that the one you're referring to? Because we got a question about it.
No, it's I'll look it up while we're talking.
Okay, so I have a comment and
Price of Time. I think it's called The Price of Time.
Price of Time.
Great book. Really great book.
Trying to see if I see it here. Well, anyway, let me go to the two. So the comment and the question by Widge. Widge is one of our more astute viewers, along with Tim. Tracy says hello. Just real quick, Louise, if you could put up Tracy, because she's
Edward Chancellor, The Price of Time.
Shout out to Tony.
Our Tracy.
What's up?
Tracy.
That's our Tracy.
Yeah.
Hi, Tracy.
All right. So
woohoo, Tracy.
It's called The Price of Time. First Widge comment. Yellen made the Run It Hot speech in October 2016. A few months later, she was launching an unprecedented double tightening, raising rates and cutting the balance sheet. So 2024, 2025 rhymes with that, according to Widge. Then he's got a question that goes back, I guess, to the AI data centers. In Pennsylvania, we're seeing everywhere from a golf course to a trailer park being bought to turn into data centers. Do we have any industrial land grab comparison to this absent maybe oil wells? I don't know.
Logistics parks,
Logistics parks?
maybe at, around Kentucky, kind of that area, Southern Ohio, that sort of thing could be, but in terms of the kind of manic buying that they're doing, it's been a while. I think it's definitely been a while. And so, I'm waiting for the social backlash on data centers.
So tell me this, Tony, because I've increased within the last few weeks, and Bobby, I've talked about it on the show, increased my exposure to nuclear, because just when I see these things, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is going to eat up a crap ton of energy. Another very sophisticated term. Is nuclear the way we should be playing this, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. Nuclear and natural gas are really the way forward. I mean, we have so much nat gas. Yeah. So why would we not burn it? I mean, I know it's a hydrocarbon.
Well, and if that's a rhetorical question, I'll say for some odd reason, the green fringe lunatics will always come in and say whatever it is that we're trying to use, independent of windmills, that somehow it's terrible. But I agree with you. Natural gas is a great alternative. Nuclear is a great alternative. So hopefully we wise up and do that kind of thing. Robert?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get an update on Kirk because a friend of mine.
If any of you guys, by the way, are watching us, have any updates on Charlie Kirk, please let us know. Like we're saying, this is a difficult show for us to do because I really feel low right now.
It's not even that it's Charlie Kirk. It's just that this happened again after the 2 Trump attempts.
Yeah,
it's like so disgusting.
With the Ukrainian refugee a couple days ago. I mean, this stuff is just
anyway, right? It's just a terrible time. Yeah.
MSNBC was interviewing one of their quote unquote experts, according to Gadsad's Twitter or his text. No, it wasn't Gadsad. Doesn't matter. It was somebody relevant who said, the guy said that he might have had this coming because of some of the rhetoric he puts out there. Well, that's the kind of stuff that makes me mad. Not that it's
so they're saying he deserved it.
I think saying it makes me mad is like an understatement by a factor of 10.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. All right, so back to Mark.
I'm old enough to remember, like you guys from your part of the world, the Skokie stuff, right?
Yeah.
The ACLU went in to defend the Nazis. I'm not a Nazi sympathizer, but this was a famous thing in the 70s where the ACLU went in to defend the Nazis' right to march in Skokie, Illinois, right? And so, I hate Nazism, all that stuff, but that is a very liberal organization that went into a very polarizing right-wing organization and defended them. Yeah. And so not that it was a great thing, but it was a really interesting example of people having their right to free speech. And so someone on MSNBC saying that Charlie Kirk deserved it, I don't think anybody deserves it, right? It's ridiculous to say somebody deserves that stuff.
So most recent update, Jimmy, he's dead.
What?
Yeah, Trump confirmed it. Assuming Charlie Kirk, based on recent events, he is dead following a shooting at Utah University. It's from, I found it on CNN, but a friend of mine just told me that Trump confirmed it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there it is on CNN.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah,
we might have to call this a little bit.
Yeah, Tony, we're going to have you back on.
We're having it back on. I can't keep going if that's okay, Tony.
Do it.
Yeah.
Okay. We can even have you next week. Let's have.
Okay.
If you're available, we'll do next week.
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to cut it a little short. It seems so weird to talk about all this other shit. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Thanks.
Cheers,
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.